Órale, Cholo Trucker, los tres chingones boxing shots, all the chingones y chingonas. After the live on Friday, I got word that we lost the great George Foreman. George Foreman is quite the interesting character because this guy had two different careers in two different eras. He was around in the Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier days. And then he was around in the Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe days as well. Not too many guys can, say that was their career in boxing, man. Those are two different eras of boxing, and he did that. And I wasn't around to catch the first run of his career. I've seen his fights. I've gone back and I've watched his fights from then, but it's not the same. It's not the same. It's one thing to go back and watch the fights. It's another thing to live the fights, right? Like live through that era. It's not quite the same. Just like Muhammad Ali, I never got to see him fight, right? I've gone back to see all, I shouldn't say all his fights, but a lot of his fights, but I never lived through that era to really get the full impact of that time, right? Now, I was around for George Foreman's second career, and what a career it was, man. Especially at that time, heavyweights, you look at the Mike Tysons, you look at the Tommy Morrisons, you look at the Razor Ruddicks, you look at the Riddick Bows, you look at the Evander Holyfields. Like a lot of these guys had certain type of bodies, right? It's probably not a big deal anymore. Well, I know it's not a big deal anymore, and it hasn't been for a while. But a lot of these guys, they look like they're in shape. You could see the cuts and their on their body. The muscle on their body, right? They all had pretty good, decent bodies. George Foreman, his second run, he comes in kind of, looking like a little bit of a doughy guy, man. He's, got a little bit of, the belly fat and everything. And I know it's not that big of a deal today because a lot of guys are like that today from, the Tyson Furies and the Andy Ruiz and the, Big Baby Miller and all these guys that are just kind of all these heavyweights today that are just kind of like fat, they're just doesn't take away from their boxing ability. But at that time, you didn't really have that many, just fat looking heavyweights, unless you're some guy like Butterbean or something. But, you had guys that were kind of in shape and, George Foreman kind of comes in, man, looking like a doughy guy. Like, it's like, man, can this guy fight? You know what I mean? Because it's like, man, you weren't really used to seeing that too much. All right. There were some guys like Larry Holmes that didn't have like a big, cut body either. But, George Foreman would look on, his body was on a different level that, at least I wasn't really used to seeing too much like that, man. And he comes in his second run, and man, he makes a name for himself. You know, it was fun watching him fight. Like I said, I could speak on what I've seen in his first career, but I can't speak on it to the magnitude of the impact because I wasn't there. But the second career that he had, it was fun, man. I mean, what a run it was. Seeing this older kind of, dull boy, kind of looking guy getting in there and not just competing, but beating some of these dudes. When somebody asks me, I get asked this, right? They say, "Hey, what's the best heavyweight fight you've ever seen?" I don't really have an answer, but I've always said this. I've said this before and I'll say it again. The first fight that comes to mind, and I'm not saying this is the best heavyweight fight. I'm just simply saying this is the first fight that comes to my mind. Whether it's the best fight or not, I'm just saying this is the first fight that comes to mind. Is George Foreman versus Evander Holyfield circa 1991. I'm not saying it's the best heavyweight fight, but I'm just saying that's the first fight that comes to mind for whatever reason. That fight stuck with me. It was a great fight, man. And I got to give it up to George Foreman for really, getting in there at an older age with a lot of these guys that it's like, oh man, these dudes, these younger guys, they're gonna, mop the floor with this older, chubby dude, man. And no, man, he held his ground. George Foreman, man, born in Texas, died in Texas. He was only 6'4", and I think he was, coming in like at 250, 240, two something like that, 260, somewhere around there. But it was fun. It was fun for those that are old enough to remember, his first career. I'm sure they can speak on it a little bit more. But that second career, it was fun, man. It was great. It was great watching him. And when he goes and becomes champion by knocking out Moore, I think wasn't it who was working Moore's corner? Wasn't it shoot, Teddy Atlas? I think it was Teddy Atlas that was working Moore's corner, and he was going crazy. Damn, he was going crazy in the corner. But yeah, man, George Foreman, comes back, becomes champion, becomes the guy, heavyweight champ, oldest guy to do it. And he, then the success that he had with the grill, the Foreman grill. It was like in his first career and talking to a couple of older heads, they would tell me like, oh man, he was the scariest dude, back then, like in the 70s and everything. He was the scariest guy, and it's kind of hard to picture that because you fast forward to his second career and he was kind of a nice guy. Yeah, don't get me wrong, man. He, put hands on dudes, but he was kind of a nice guy. And then he goes to do his grills, and he's like, "Who wants some burgers?" You know what I mean? Like he was everybody's lovable favorite grandpa, and it's like this dude was the meanest dude back then. Huh? Like, wow, okay. But nonetheless, man, look, I just want to come on here as part of Los Tres Chingones Boxing and pay a tribute and an honor to a legend in the sport, a great one. And like I said, something that he's done that I don't know who else has done it. Has had two different careers in two different eras, and I'm not talking about stepping out of the ring for like 5 years and then making a comeback. Like that's still the same era. This guy literally had was in boxing for two different eras, man. And that second era, it's not like he went out on a bad note. It's not like he came back all washed up and it's like, oh man, it's just sad seeing him fight now. Like, oh, this is disgusting. Like, no, man. He became champ. Wow. Wow, man. What a career. What a career. What a legacy this man left in boxing. George Foreman, man, the late great George Foreman. We lose a great one, a Hall of Famer at 76 years old, man. Born in Texas, died in Texas. George Foreman, thank you so much for all the memories. Thank you for all the battles that you put in the ring and showing that the warrior spirit lives on. Rest in peace, champ. Cholo Chuck, Los Tres Chingones Boxing. Shouts to all the chingones y chingonas for the late, great George Foreman.